Buongiorno a tutti e grazie per essere presenti oggi. Mi presento, sono Katy Grisetic, consigliera del Comune di San Pietro al Natisone, con delega ai gemellaggi. Nel caso specifico sono la responsabile per il progetto europeo che stiamo per avviare e sarò per tutto il periodo la vostra referente. Come sapete, i comuni di San Pietro al Natisone come capofila del progetto e di Sambreville come comune gemellato hanno aderito al progetto europeo Cittadini per l'Europa, cofinanziato dall'Unione Europea. Il tema principale del progetto è la celebrazione del 70° anniversario della Schuman Declaration, 9 maggio 1950, e la sua attualizzazione nel contesto di un processo di maggiore integrazione. Il programma si svilupperà nell'arco di 21 giorni, a partire dal 24 al 9 del 5, e prevede il coinvolgimento di più di 100 studenti, di cui 55 provenienti da Sambreville, più insegnanti e autorità. Le attività progettuali da sviluppare si svolgeranno in parte online e in parte in presenza, come segue. 5 webinar coordinate da esperti che sono stati scelti insieme ad ISIG, Istituto di Sociologia Internazionale, per i 5 assi di temi prioritari del progetto: economia, sicurezza e confini, fiducia nelle istituzioni, ambiente, educazione, raccolto dal white paper. Gemellaggio in presenza a San Pietro al Natisone nelle giornate del 7, 8, 9 con workshop sulle tematiche precedentemente discusse nei webinar. Evento finale con creazione da parte degli studenti del manifesto sul futuro dell'Europa. Ogni comune del progetto, rappresentato da una delegazione di studenti partecipanti, porterà le proprie istanze e riflessioni sulle tematiche in oggetto davanti alle autorità locali dei suddetti comuni. I webinar verranno registrati e pubblicati successivamente sul canale YouTube dedicato del Comune e potranno essere ascoltate dalle persone indirettamente coinvolte nel progetto. Dal giorno 7 maggio al giorno 9, tutti gli studenti belgi locali, più di 100 studenti, saranno impegnati nelle sedi appositamente scelte presso il nostro Comune in delle workshop interattive per discutere insieme ai relatori di ISIG degli argomenti precedentemente trattati durante il webinar. L'ultimo giorno del progetto verrà firmato dalle autorità istituzionali presenti un manifesto per l'Europa preparato dagli studenti partecipanti al programma e che riassumerà a brevi punti il lavoro svolto e gli obiettivi raggiunti dal progetto. Tutte le attività del progetto saranno disseminate sui social, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube e su pagina dei 2 comuni coinvolti. Nel rispetto della privacy, chiediamo a tutti i ragazzi di tenere le videocamere oscurate e il microfono spento, attivandolo solo in caso di richieste di interventi. Bonjour à tous et merci d'être présents aujourd'hui. Je me présente, je suis Katy Grisetic, conseillère de la municipalité de San Pietro al Natisone, en charge pour le gemellage. Dans ce cas précis, je suis la personne en charge du projet européen que nous sommes sur le point de démarrer et je serai votre interlocuteur pendant toute la période. Comme vous le savez, les communes de San Pietro al Natisone, en tant que chef de projet, et de Sambreville en tant que ville jumelée, vont collaborer pour le développement du projet européen citoyen pour l'Europe, cofinancé par l'Union européenne. Le thème principal du projet est la célébration du 70e anniversaire de la déclaration Schuman, 9 mai 1950, et son actualisation dans le cadre d'un processus de plus grande intégration. Le programme se déroulera sur 21 jours, du 20-04 au 9-05, et implique l'implication de plus de 100 élèves, dont 55 de Sambreville, plus enseignants et autorités. Les activités du projet à développer se dérouleront en partie en ligne et en partie en personne, comme suit. 5 webinaires coordonnés par des experts qui ont été choisis avec l'aide de ISIC, Institut de sociologie internationale, pour les 5 axes prioritaires du projet: économie, sécurité, frontières, confiance dans les institutions, environnement, éducation. Extrait du livre blanc sur l'avenir de l'Europe. Jumelage en présence à San Pietro al Natisone les jours 7, 8, 9 avec des ateliers sur les sujets précédemment abordés dans les webinaires. Événement final avec la création par les étudiants du manifeste sur l'avenir de l'Europe. Chaque commune du projet, représentée par une délégation d'étudiants participants, apportera ses propres demandes, réflexions sur les enjeux en question devant les autorités locales des communes précitées. Les webinaires seront enregistrés et publiés et ultérieurement sur la chaîne YouTube dédiée de la municipalité pourront être écoutés par les personnes directement impliquées dans le projet. Du 7 mai au 9 mai, tous les étudiants belges et locaux, plus de 100 étudiants, seront engagés dans les lieux spécialement choisis de notre commune dans les ateliers interactifs pour discuter avec les intervenants de l'ISIC des sujets précédemment abordés lors des webinaires. Le dernier jour du projet, il y aura la présentation d'un manifeste qui sera signé par les autorités institutionnelles et précédemment préparé par les étudiants participant au programme et qui résumera en bref point le travail effectué, les objectifs atteints pour le projet. Toutes les activités du projet seront diffusées sur les réseaux sociaux, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube et sur la page des 2 communes concernées. Dans le respect de la privacy, nous vous prions et nous demandons à tous les étudiants de garder les caméras sombres et le microphone éteint et de l'activer seulement dans le cas d'intervention. Je vous souhaite une très bonne écoute et je vous laisse dans les mains de notre expert qui suivra le webinaire en langue anglaise. Bonne écoute. Elisa può partire, sa. Ok, grazie mille. E io non sento Elisa, sa, penso che abbia il microfono staccato. No? Non sto sentendo. Non so se gli altri sentono.
Sì, mi sente?
Ecco, così sento, sì.
Allora erano le cuffie, eccomi.
Ok, perfetto, grazie.
Thank you, sorry. Good morning, everyone. It's just quite difficult to speaking in English after listening 2 different languages. And so I think it's difficult also for you to listen to me in another language. But feel free to stop me if I'm not clear or if you want to ask something or if you just want to add something. And it's also quite strange to speak without viewing anyone, but now we can start together, and I would like to start briefly introduce myself. I'm Elisa Virgili. I'm currently doing different jobs and I have different interests, but I'm here as a gender expert. I used to work in an ONG called ActionAid Italia, but is an international federation. I don't know if you already listen about it. And I used to work on European projects on gender-based violence, in particular on socio-economic empowerment of women that survived to violence. But I'm also a researcher. My background is in political philosophy, and during this meeting, this lesson, you could discover my interest in political philosophy. I started to study in Padua, at University of Padua, but I come from a small village near Udine, and then I moved to Paris with the Erasmus program to study at the Sorbonne University. And then I moved to Milan for my PhD. And during my PhD, I also do some 1 year of research in Sweden, in Uppsala. And I'm back last year in Sweden, in Malmö. I would like to tell you all these things about my academic career and education, because the topic of today is the importance of education to build a more equal Europe. So I think that also my experience and my education, the path of my education could show how important it is to move in other countries, to learn in other countries, to exchange with students from other countries, like you do with this project. So I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very glad to be part of this project. So let's start with the topic of today. I already said that the main topic is education, and the education in relation with the topics of the white paper from the future of Europe. So basically we discuss, we analyze, I hope together, I hope that you could interact with me. We will discuss how education can contribute to a gender equal construction of Europe, and vice versa, how gender equal education is the base of a political participation. So I'm going to share some slides. I don't have too much slides because I already said that I'm a philosopher, so I prefer to talk and to discuss with you. Is it all clear still now? Or do you want to test if you can speak? You can also, I think you can also write in a chat. Time to time I will check if someone wants to ask something. And the other thing I would like to say is that if you feel more comfortable to speak in French or in Italian, in your mother tongue, feel free to do it. I will translate the question and I will answer in English. So you have also this possibility if you want, but maybe your English is better than mine. So let's start if no one wants to ask something. Okay, I think you should see my not so beautiful PowerPoint. I'm trying to like change the slide, but it seems not possible. Okay, so I would like to start with an icebreaker, a small game. I don't know how to call it, but this is a picture of an international meeting with different chiefs of states, of national states, of course, Europe, United States, China, and is it an institutional picture? Recent, and the question for you, if you want to answer, is who missing in the room? So who do you think missed in this picture? If no one answer, I could give you some clue, maybe a small clue. I'm starting saying that I saw just one woman in all picture and 7 men. Do you think anyone else missed in this picture? So another clue is that maybe there is something missing about age. all people, there is not so young people, and maybe other things. Do you think there is other subjectivities, let's say, other kind of people, other who is like, let's change the question, who is not represented in this picture? I think a lot of people missed, and if you want, we can like behind this picture, how the situation is. And let's start with the gender issue. Is it clear for everyone what gender issue is? I already said that there is just one woman in the picture, so that means that maybe it's not so easy for women have this position, have a political career, have an important position in work in general and in a public space, even if, as you can see in this small infographic, the situation is going better and better, like not every day, but every year and every change of the European Parliament. So the situation now is that there are more than the double women in Parliament compared to the 80s, for instance. So even if the presence of the women in the European Parliament and also in our national states parliaments is not so, it's not equal, let's say, it's not the same of the men presence. It's the situation is going better. And I think the situation is going better for different factors, and one of these factors is the education, and of course the education, the access of the access to education for women, and also on the other hand, the fact that more and more we had gender equal programs in school and university, and also in a job place. So all these gender programs try to deconstruct stereotypes. Is it the term stereotypes familiar for you, or is better that we stop just a few seconds on this topic? But let's say just a few words about what gender is and what stereotypes are, even if I think you are, yes, please. I saw a small hand. No, I can't hear you. Even if I saw that you have the microphone on, sorry. Or if you want, you can just write the question. I don't know. but yes, it's better. Yes, but if someone could help with fixing the situation, is better, because I think it will be better also for the next hour to have the possibility to speak.
From here, the meeting has everything set, so I don't know. The problem might be in Belgium, not in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just wait a few seconds if they can fix it. It seems you found the microphone, because I saw the icon, like, now it's off. Okay, should I? Okay, now I also can see you, and it's quite better. So maybe the next step is that I can see you.
We require the cameras off, please, for privacy reasons. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, should I maybe go on in the meantime, and then
I think they might collect the questions and send them in chat, and then you can answer later. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, actually, I just spend a few words on what gender stereotypes are, and on what maybe gender is. Gender is, if you usually in this kind of discourse and in this kind of studies, you can divide gender from sex, and sex is the biological characteristic that define people in as men or women. So it's supposed to be quite objective. It's something that you can't discuss. And on the other hand, gender is the are all the characteristics that define people as male or female by all the things that you can see or you can hear, for instance. So let's say the clothes, the voice, the movements, but it's not so objective, because it depends of the society and of and from culture and from and change in times and spaces. What is considered typical for a girl in Italy in 2022 is not the same what was considered typical for a girl in French in 80s, for instance, or in India, or today in India, or today in Mexico. So it's something that the society constructs, and someone considered that construction as a norm. So something that is not natural, and something that in a way force you to stay in a certain rules, in certain norms. On this kind of construction, and this kind of construction are built by stereotypes. This means that there is a lot of things considered typical for girls, but just because we used to that, and this is something that you considered typical, but at the same time typical for girl, but at the same time you consider these things also natural, because you see that the girls are in this way almost always, and the society define girls in this way, define girls, for instance, to be more close to the topic of today, girls are not so good in science or in math, and this is a stereotype, because it's just because for a long time girls are not considered adapt to this kind of jobs, that then become a stereotype that girls are not good in math or in science. And later we will see how this could influence the participation of girls in certain sphere of job and sphere of interest. I don't know if in the meantime you find out how to speak. Otherwise, I will continue, because this is just a small explanation on what stereotypes and what gender is, and it should work now. So do you want to try to ask something or to add something on what I already said? No, I can't hear you. But I don't know if it's just my problem of Katie, for instance, can hear you. No, I still can't hear you. So I don't know if you want to collect for now the questions and put in a chat. Maybe it's a better solution in the meantime. Okay.
I think it's better if they collect the questions in chat and then you answer. Thank you.
Yeah, for now it's the only way, I think. So going back to the picture that I show you before, let's say that the presence of just one woman has a meaning in that picture, because that means that it's not so easy to be a women politician, and even if we could say that in 2022 in Europe, at the European Parliament, there is no explicit obstacle to access at the parliament and to be, there is no obstacle in having a political career. At the same time, we could say that there still are a lot of invisible obstacles. That means that law, of course, law and the job environment encourage the participation of women, and there is no law that, of course, deny this participation. There are a lot of we already said programs and a lot of things that encourage women to participate and to have a political career, but at the same time there are still this invisible obstacle. That means that there are still a lot of stereotypes about women. Now I hear something. Yes, I can hear you finally. I can hear us. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's it. Okay, great.
Okay. Yes. No. So I was speaking about invisible obstacles, such as a lot of stereotypes about women and about the fact that the political career is not so it's not fixed with being women, and not fixed with being also and having maybe also a family and being a mother and being a good wife. And this means that there is a lot of what a lot of families called unpaid care work that is still in charge of to women. This means that still care of child is in charge of women, the care of aunts and parents is in charge of women, the care of the house and all and a lot of things is in charge of women. This means that women have to work more than men during the day. There is an Italian blog called 27ª ora, that means 27 hours, the 27th hour, that because it's someone seems that women would have to have 27 hours in a day to complete all the work that they have to do, both in-house and outside the house. And there is also a lot of invisible obstacles in the job environment, for instance. But we are here today basically to say that if you change the path and if you change also the programs, of course, in education, we can change this, and we can maybe remove this invisible obstacle. But yeah, we'll see later during this hour how it's possible to remove this invisible obstacles. And at the beginning, with this kind of icebreaker, I was saying that there is not only a gender issue in this picture, but there are also other kind of we could call the discrimination, and also another kind of obstacles that deny to other kind of people to be present in that room and to be represented in that picture. So I would like to talk you briefly about intersectional concept. I don't know if you are already familiar with that, but I would like to show you, if I'm able to show you a small video, just 3 minutes, that explain what intersectional concept is in very easy way. So let's try to do it, and then maybe let's add something to the video. Okay, let's just have a just try if you can hear the audio. Can you tell me if it works? Did it work? Could you hear the audio of the video?
The audio is not on.
It's not on. Okay. So I don't know, maybe I can send the link in the chat and all the people could see the video. Maybe it's the...
Yeah, just send me the link and I'll play the video. That will be easier.
Okay.
I'll play it.
I send it now. I can hear you, and I send the I think I sent the link in the chat. Okay, so I send the link, and could you notice me when you...
Sure, I will let you know when we see the video.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Can you just tell us what to search for on the YouTube bar?
I'm trying to do it from the center here.
Okay.
Can everybody hear?
No.
I don't know how to do it because there's something with the protection of the site.
Okay.
So we can have a look at it later.
Yes, of course. I left the link in the chat, so everyone could maybe saw the video after or at home or wherever. But basically, intersection is...
What about now?
No, just I saw the video, but I can hear. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
maybe start again.
We made it.
Hey, Betsy. What the long face?
Hi, Dave. I just got off the phone with my wife. She is having issues at work still.
Oh, no. What's happening?
Well, as I'm sure you know, my wife is Hispanic. She moved to the United States from the Dominican Republic many years ago. Even though she's lived in the US for many years, people are sometimes still hard on her because of her accent.
Wow. Is that why there's issues at work?
Well, that's one of the reasons. Her boss seems to be passing her up for opportunities, and she's just had it. She thinks her boss doesn't like her accent, and after he found out that she was married to a woman, the tension at work got even higher. I feel so awful for her. I wish I knew how to help.
Has she talked to human resources about her concerns?
We have discussed that, and I think it will be the next step. It's just tough for her in this situation because she isn't sure where his hostility is coming from.
What do you mean by that?
Have you heard about the theory of intersectionality?
No, actually. What is that?
Intersectionality is the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage.
Could you explain that a little more simply?
Sorry about that. Basically, it's the idea that we are not just one identity. We have many parts of us. You, myself, and my wife are all part of the LGBTQ community, right?
Yes, and my boyfriend too.
Yeah, exactly. Except we all four belong to other groups that make us who we are. Unfortunately, some of us are part of other minority groups that are also discriminated against. My wife, for example, is a Hispanic, lesbian woman. These different points of her intersect, and it creates double and even triple discrimination at times.
Geez, Betsy, I hadn't even thought about that before.
That's all right, Dave. We have spent so much time focusing on segmented groups to promote diversity, but it goes so far beyond that. When my wife, or anyone else that belongs to multiple minority groups, feels discriminated against, it is difficult to understand the cause or even how to approach the situation. My wife, for example, isn't sure if she is experiencing homophobia, sexism, or racism, or even a combination.
Wow, that is really sad when you think about it. Intersectionality isn't something I'd ever considered before, but you're right. Even though we're all a part of the LGBTQ community, none of us experience life in the same way.
Exactly, Dave. Intersectionality is the belief that oppressions are interlinked and cannot be solved alone. This is the pivot of diversity. The more we take the time to get to know and understand people from all walks of life and stop trying to fit ourselves and others into one category, the better off we will be as a society.
I agree, Betsy. I hope things get better for your wife. We've made great strides in universal acceptance, but there's still a long way to go.
Thank you, Dave. I hope so too. And I definitely agree. It is important to truly listen to others and examine our own privileges. I hope we can find a solution with her boss and for anyone else experiencing these issues, both within the workplace and out.
Okay, thank you for sharing this video and helping me with these technical issues. And I don't know, for me it was quite it's a nice video because it seems that for me they explain in almost in an easy way what intersectionality is, and I think you could move this example or this story to other contexts such as school and or political participation. This story is about different discrimination at work, but you could think also about this situation like in sports or in school or of course in a picture that I saw you before. So if we try to remove all these different and intersect obstacles, we could maybe really change the picture, also the institutional picture. But yes, now maybe if you don't have questions, or if you don't want to add something, I would like to make a step back. And in order to see how maybe from where and when we start this path to equality, and how we can improve the situation of equal opportunity in Europe. And I would like to start from let's share again. I would like to start from Ventotene Manifesto, and I would like to tell you briefly this story. I don't know if you already know something about it, but I will be I will talk about this very briefly, and then I will tell you other 2 or 3, let's say, what if we have enough time, 3 stories in order to make our path about education and gender and other kind of discrimination equality. So what about Ventotene Manifesto? In 1941, during World War II, Altiero Spinelli, Ernesto Rossi, and Eugenio Colorni, 3 important anti-fascists, confined in the small island of Ventotene, the island that gave the name to the manifesto, wrote the document which will become the inspiration and basis for the future creation of the European Union. The historical moment is dramatic, of course. Almost all of Europe, except UK, is occupied by Nazi and fascist armies. The authors of the manifesto, analyzing the political scenario of the time, assert that World War II has erupted not because of economic or religious conflict, but essentially because of the clash between nationalism. So the clash between different nations and different will of this nation to be powerful, let's say. This document, also known as the Ventotene Manifesto, was secreted off the island and into the hands of the Italian resistance by Ursula Hirschman, I don't know if I pronounce well her name, married with one of the 3 anti-fascist, Eugenio Colorini. The Ventotene Manifesto presents 3 founding ideas. The first one is the overcoming of the division of Europe in sovereign national states. The second one is the construction of a new supranatural political power, so something like above the national states, and the overcoming of poverty and misery through the European Federation, which would allow freeing of economic resources. This is, of course, a vision that today could be described as prophetic, because, yes, this is the 3 founded ideas of what European Union is. The themes of the Ventotene Manifesto, even if was wrote really a lot of years ago, as current as ever. The authors of the Ventotene Manifesto calls also for new men to realize a free and united Europe, and in a way I think that these new men and women, we could say today, could be you. But the women part, as we saw, is very important and necessary. But maybe the question now is how we can realize and improve this idea. And of course, if we are here today, is because I think, but also not just me, also a lot of other people think that education has a fundamental role in this and is a key element in this. In order to I already saw that I would like to tell you other stories, and in order to better understand the importance that education has in gender equality, I want to start a bit far back, more than what we already did, because there was a woman, a philosopher, who spoke a long time ago about this topic, and much better than I can. And I'm speaking about Mary Wollstonecraft. I don't know if someone of you already heard about her. I don't know if it's so famous now, because for me it's one of the most important philosophers, of course, and it's one of my favorite, let's say, women in history, but I don't know if all the people know her. Mary Wollstonecraft, but yeah, let's say a few words about Mary Wollstonecraft. Was an English writer, philosopher, and advocate of women's rights. She was born in 1759, so really a lot of time ago. Until the late 20th century, Wollstonecraft's life, which include several unconventional personal relationships at the time. She married a lot of time, but she had so unlucky, let's say, relationship. And this life received more attention than her writing. Today, Wollstonecraft is regarded as one of the founding feminist philosophers, and feminists often cite both her life and her works as important influences. This because it's not just what she wrote that is important, of course, but also her experience and her, we could say, example, the way in which she lives was an example of what a different woman can do, what a revolutionary, let's say, women can do. During her brief career, she wrote novels, travel narratives, because she traveled in Paris during the revolution, during the French Revolution, and in Sweden, and it was not so alone, and it was not so common for women at the time. She wrote also a history of the French Revolution and children's books. Wollstonecraft is best known for Vindication of Right of Women, wrote in 1792, in which she argues that women are not naturally inferior to men, but appear to be like in this way only because they lack education. So basically, she said what we already said before about stereotypes and about the importance of education for the women political participation. This suggests that both men and women should be treated as rational beings and images a social order founded on reason. After Wollstonecraft's death, her widower published a memoir in 1798 of her life, revealing her unorthodox lifestyle, which in a way, maybe not on purpose, destroy her reputation for almost a century. However, with the emergence of the feminist movement in 20th century, Wollstonecraft's advocacy of women's equality and critiques of conventional femininity become increasingly important. After two unfortunate relationships with Henry Fuseli and Gilbert Imlay, by whom she had a daughter, Fanny, Wollstonecraft married the philosopher William Godwin, one of the forefathers of the anarchist movement. But Wollstonecraft died at the age of 38, leaving behind several unfinished manuscripts. She died 11 days after giving birth to her second daughter, Mary Shelley, that maybe you know, who will become a famous writer and author of Frankenstein. So this is the connection. I tell you all these things because you can like put in a place the figure of Mary Wollstonecraft. But a couple of more words of vindication of the rights of women. This book is one of the earliest work of feminist philosophy, maybe the first one. In it, Wollstonecraft argued that women ought to have an education commiserate with their position in society, and then proceed to redefine that position, claiming that women are essential to nation because they educate its children and because they could be companions to their husband rather than mere wives. Maybe, yeah, during these days, this affirmation seems quite old, but you have to consider how revolutionary are these sentences at the time. So she says the education of women is important because mothers spoke with children that are the future of the nation. And the education of women is important because in this way they could like talk with a husband and not being just like a silent wife. Instead of viewing women as ornaments to society or property to be traded in marriage, as was typical at the time, Wollstonecraft maintains that they are human beings deserving the same fundamental rights as men, and I think is the first one that explicitly said and wrote that the women has to have fundamental rights as men. Largest section of the rights of women respond to educational philosophers such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who want to deny women an education. Rousseau, for example, argues in Émile, his book, that women should be educated for pleasure of men, not because this is right. Wollstonecraft states that currently many women are silly and superficial, but argues that this is not because of innate deficiency of mind, but rather because men have denied them access to education. And this is what we mean by deconstruct stereotypes. This is what we mean gender stereotypes, that the things that we talked before. She writes, "Taught from their infancy that beauty in women is Shatra. The mind shaped itself to the body, and roaming round its gilt cage, only seeks to adore its person." She implies that without the encouragement young women receive from an early age to focus their attention of beauty and outward accomplishment, women could achieve much more. So focusing on education rather than care of beauty could be like an achievement for women. In addition to her larger philosophical arguments, Wollstonecraft also lays out a specific education plan, so not just theory, but a lot of like practical indication. In the 12th chapter of The Right of Women, called On National Education, she argues that all children should be sent to a country day school, as well as given some education at home to inspire a love of home and domestic pleasure. She also maintained that schooling should be co-educational, arguing that men and women whose marriages are the cement of society should be educated after the same model. So the education have to be the same for girls, boys, and girls. And of course, today it seems something that we already achieved, but not in all parts of the world, first of all, and not for good, let's say. There are still some stereotypes in education. For instance, in sports, there are still typical male sports and typical female sports. Wollstonecraft argues also that uneducated women cannot be a fit companion for an educated man. Her ignorance will reduce the progress of women, knowledge and virtue, and it will prevent her from understanding and taking part in her own responsibility to be a virtuous person. Further, if women are to teach their children to be good, moral and patriotic citizens, they must be well educated. One cannot teach without an education. For Wollstonecraft, the education offered to women in her day did nothing to prepare them for any of these duties. In fact, it often made them entirely unsuited to attempt to fulfill them at all. So again, it seems that the education for women is just in order to be a good wife for a man, but I think this is just an let's say an escamotage for Wollstonecraft to reclaim women's rights, because of course at the time it was difficult to say and to wrote that the women have to have the same rights of men. Now this may seem like very different issues to us, and they are, luckily. It may seem to us that girls are educated in the same ways as boys, and in fact you are here today, both girls and boys, and you all have the same possibility on paper, let's say, because we already talked about invisible obstacles. Because however there are still differences both in access to political offices and political career and to jobs considered typical male, such scientific or technology related jobs. And I would like just to coming back to contemporary times, to today, with this small two infographics and with some data about how, on one hand, about how the situation is really going better and better, as we said at the beginning of this meeting, but at the same time on how we can't give for guarantee the women's rights, and we can give for guarantee that boys and girls have the same opportunity in education. And I'm talking about STEM, that is an acronym for science, technology, engineer, and maths, and that represents, let's say, all the scientific fields of study and jobs. And you can see that the countries in Europe with the blue color are the countries in which the situation is better. That means that in which the scientific jobs or education are almost equal for girls and boys. And the orange country are the ones in which the situation is worse, the one in which the situation is still not balanced between genders, and in which girls and women has difficult access to scientific careers. The data, the last data that I had is from 2020. I didn't find more recent research on the situation in Europe about scientists and engineers. And yeah, at the time, men are still more than women, but let's say that the situation is not so bad as 20 years before, because now 59% of men has scientific jobs in confront of 41% of women. But I think I have 20 more minutes, so I would, if you don't want to ask me something, I would like to talk you about another important writer and feminist and women for me, called Virginia Woolf, and I think it's maybe more famous than Mary Wollstonecraft. And maybe you may know her. Virginia Woolf was born in 1882, so it's more recent than Wollstonecraft, but not, let's say, not contemporary. Was an English writer, considered one of the most important modernists of 20th century authors and a pioneer in the use of stream of consciousness as a narrative device. Virginia Woolf became one of the center subjects of the 70s feminist movement. She has written so many things. I really recommend you to read something of hers. I could not choose one thing in particular, maybe Mrs. Dalloway, but let's please ask to your English teacher if she or he was recommended something, or maybe you already read something about her. Today, however, I speak only of one book that is like close to our topic, because we don't have much time, and I would like to speak about Aeneas in a work of that is a work of non-fiction, and the entire essay is structured as a response to structured as a 3 letters that respond to an educated gentleman who has written a letter asking Virginia Woolf to join his effort to help prevent war. So is like, of course, like a literary escamotage, but I choose this because it's very close to our topic about education, but also because this book talk about pacifism and war, and I think that is important during these days, talking also on how education is important to reasoning on war, and on the other hand on pacifism. When Virginia wrote this book in 1936-37, war was looming, and the question was particularly pressing to Woolf, a committed pacifist. In the gentleman's letter, he is anonymous, and of course is like a fantasy character. He asked Woolf her opinion about how best to prevent war, and offers some practical steps. So such Wollstonecraft did. She not like just wrote something in theory, but she gives like some practical and real tips. Woolf opened a response by starting first and with some hyperbole, that this is she starts the letter in this way: a remarkable letter, a letter perhaps unique in the history of human correspondence, since when before as an educated man asked a woman how, in her opinion, can be prevented. And of course, she is a little bit ironic, maybe. In the course of responding to educated man's question and practical suggestions, Woolf turns to other two other letters: a request for funds to help rebuild a women's college, and a request for support for an organization to help women enter to a professional life. And all these 3 response to letter was linked to the answer was you could give us a guineas, and the guineas of the book title are themselves a page of such a class, the money amount of 21 shillings, 1.05 pounds sterling. So I don't know how we can compare, which no coin no longer exists, but which was still the common denomination for solely upper class transactions. So it's something that is something, it's like a common way to talk about money. This allows Wolf to explain her criticisms of the structure of education and the professions, which mostly involves showing how they encourage the very attitudes that lead to fascism both at home and abroad. Wolf does not refuse the value of education and public service, but suggests conditions which the daughters of educated men will need to heed if they are to prevent being corrupted by public order. She imagines, for example, a new kind of college that avoids teaching the tools of domination. She imagined an experimental college, an adventurous college. It should teach the art of understanding other people's lives and mine. The teacher should be drawn from the good leaders as well as from the good thinkers. So she imagined a different kind of education. She imagined an education more also on feelings and emotion and lives. And she imagined an education for, of course, for men and women. In the final section, Wolf returns from the topic of education and the profession to the largest question of preventing war and the practical measures suggested for doing so. In it, she argues that although she agreed with her interlocutor that war is evil, they must attempt to eradicate it in different ways. And since we are different, Wolf concludes, our help must be different. So basically, she says that, of course, all we should be pacifist, but the way in which we are against war is different between men and women, and we could give different contributes to this pacifism. The view expressed in three guineas have been described as feminist, pacifist, and anti-fascist and anti-imperialist. A lot of things for a woman at the time. The question Wolf discussed in three guineas is how women can prevent war when they are excluded from education, the profession, and the public sphere. The title Three Guineas derives from Wolf pondering whether she should support three causes with a guinea donation. These three causes are a society to stop war, a campaign to support the retribution of a women's college, as we already said, and an organization to promote women's employment in the profession. So basically, she says, if you give us three guineas, one to stop the war, one to build a new kind of women's college, and one to promote an organization to promote women's employment, we could change all the society and build a gender equal society without war. This is like the key point. Wolf had been observing the rise of fascism in Europe with a keen interest. She was well aware that many of the newly gained women's rights in Germany were being eroded as Nazism forced women to readopt traditional roles. Wolf was concerned that a similar situation could occur in Britain too. Three Guineas is essentially a critique of patriarchy. Wolf made the link between patriarchal family life and its connection to fascism. the oppression of domestic life for women is reflected in the oppression of women in society. As before, many of these things may seem distant to us, but I think Virginia Woolf show well the importance of education, not only for gender equality, but also for building citizenship, for building a Europe where all rights are respected. I don't know if now you want to add something or to ask something. I think we had 10 more minutes, correct, Katie?
Yes, 10 minutes. I don't know if, but I take the opportunity for asking to the students if they have any question on the matter.
Well, they don't have a lot of questions, but let me ask them first.
Question, or just if you want and if you feel comfortable, maybe also some experience about invisible obstacles that you found, or some suggestions maybe to improve our to improve education, or maybe some political aspirations.
We're talking here about the invisible obstacles to see, well, I just asked the same question. And another thinking. Because you guys talked about being a good wife, taking care of kids, and working at home, is that right? Do you see any other invisible obstacles? They don't, I guess.
E siccome l'audio non è molto, non si capisce molto bene, forse è meglio consigliargli che scrivano le domande.
Yes, because I'm hearing you now, but not so well. So if you want to write the questions in the chat, maybe I can understand better. And I'm not sure if you made a question or if you are just discussing in your classroom. Yes, I'm happy that you are thinking about other invisible obstacles. I'm not sure that is the right word, because of course it's not so easy to discuss and put in critique all the things in our life. Is maybe sometimes it's better to just think that we have the same possibility, but yeah, I think it's a good exercise to critique our context, also like schools, and thinking about what we could do and what we want to do in future. And also in terms of obstacles, without seeing these obstacles as something very difficult or something that we can afford. So it's an exercise because we want to remove these obstacles, and I think it's something that is difficult to do in an individual way, but if we think in a collective way, if we think in political way, we can easily remove these obstacles. And I think it's good to talk about it also because it's good to talk about what we would like to do in future, what kind of future we would like to construct. And I hope that the presentation, the meeting of today, don't seem too old to you, because I'm quite sure that writers from the past could give us a lot of practical tips also today, even if this seems far. But yeah, I'm certain that there is a question. A student is asking what you think about the gender issue, if you only think the number issue is on the education. The number one issue is on education. I don't think the number one issue is education. I think it's one of the issues, but I think it's really important because, of course, let's say the law and the institutional part is important. It's important to have laws about equal opportunity. It's important to have laws about gender violence, for instance, laws about hate speech online. But and of course, I'm not so naive to think that the financial part is not important. Of course, it's important to have finances on this topic, but I'm also quite sure that if you don't work on prevention and on education, you could put like a lot of laws without efficiency, because you can't just force people to be equal or to be gender sensitive or to be open-minded. I think education is maybe a longer way, but is more efficient. Of course, we have to combine different aspects in order to achieve gender opportunity and all kinds of equality. I don't know if I answered the question. And I'm also, I would like to add that for me, education is not just the institutional education and not just school, but as I mentioned before, education passed through a lot of other things, such as Netflix, movies, books, graphic novels, sports, all things that can contribute to give us a new kind of imaginary of gender, because for me, education is also just showing the possibility that women could do everything. Just I think it's important to have like graphic novels for children in which you could see like a girl that wants to be an astronaut, or girls want to be a plumber. So yeah, I think education is an umbrella term is a really large term for me.
Okay. First of all, we thank you very much, Mrs. Elisa, for the very clear and interesting explanation on the education matter, a very important field in the life of all women and men. All the subject points of the webinar will be analyzed from the students in the next workshop of May. We thank you all, everyone, for being here today, and we also confirm that the webinar will be recorded and published on the dedicated YouTube channel. I wish you a nice day to all of you, and we thank you again, Mrs. Elisa.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
read something about Virginia Woolf.
Okay.